Hi everybody, it's David Fleming here from the Toronto Realty blog, and today I want to explore a topic that we have touched on so many times on TRB before, and that is pre-construction condominiums. More specifically today, I want to look at builders' forms. I want to examine what the buyers are signing. Now, if you've read my blog over the last 10 years, you're aware that I don't sell pre-construction condos. In fact, I am vehemently opposed to the purchase of them unless you happen to be an incredibly savvy investor who has done this over and over and over. Now, a couple weeks ago, there was a well-publicized condo cancellation at a project called the Museum Flats. It was written up in a couple of newspapers. A lot of the buyers thought it was very unfair what had happened and wanted to know why. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize in advance if this sounds insensitive, but the reason why is contained in here. These are builders' forms, and this is what you are signing. So today, trying to be helpful for all the people contemplating a purchase or those that are wondering why something happened that was unforeseen, I would like to go through a couple of different builders' forms with you and point out areas that I deem of concern. Okay, you ready? Let's take a look. Let's look at the square footage of the unit, okay? This reads, calculations and measurements are approximate only. The net living area of the unit will differ from the floor area of the unit. And here's where it gets interesting. There is no representation or warranty as to the size of the unit, that the purchase price is not based on the floor area of the unit, and the purchaser shall not be entitled to an adjustment for same in the event that the actual floor area of the constructed unit differs from that indicated by the promotional material or provided by the vendor's agents. So if you bought a 700 square foot condo and you paid for it under the impression you were getting 700 square feet, there is absolutely nothing to stop the developer from giving you less than 700 square feet. What are you buying outside of your unit? What building are you buying into? We actually don't know, because the purchaser acknowledges and agrees that the vendor may, at its sole, absolute, and unfettered discretion, make alterations, changes, additions, or deletions to anything, including without limitation, any buildings, structures, and improvements, included or depicted on any site plan, marketing materials, signs, artist renderings, or scale model. The purchaser further acknowledges that the vendor shall only be required to provide the amenities as specifically set out in the disclosure statements, notwithstanding any artist renderings, models, displays, advertising, marketing material, or otherwise to the contrary. Guys, you're buying your unit, and as we've seen in previous statements and ones that are coming after this, things are subject to change. But in the building itself, if you were told you're getting a pool, you might not be getting a pool. If you were told that you're going to have direct access to the subway, and we've seen how this has played out before, you may not, because the developer can change anything at its sole, absolute, and unfettered discretion. What about closing costs? If you were to Google closing cost horror story, you will see people on forums that have said, I bought a $350,000 condo and I've got $58,000 in closing costs. May I remind you, when you buy resale, the closing costs are $0.00. Now, ignoring a host of items in here, installation of hydrometer, surcharge for the Law Society of Upper Canada, you're paying the developer's fee, an enrollment fee for the new home warranty plan. There's just so many things in here. $500 for electricity meter. We have so many things in here. They charge you $500 for every check that you give them in occupancy. But this is the part that I want to talk about. The city fees. Are you ready for this? Any levy, charge, payment, contribution, essentially synonyms for all, including without limitation, park levies, development charges, education development charges, cash in lieu of parkland dedication payments. Ooh, fun. Public art contributions, impost charges. I don't even know what that is. Required, assessed, charged, or imposed by the municipality, a regional municipality, a transit authority, a public or separate school board, or any other authority having any jurisdiction under the Developmental Charges Act, Education Act, Planning Act, or any other existing new legislation. Guys, if the City of Toronto says to the developer, we want $10,000 per unit for green fee, $20,000 for education, the developer doesn't care. You're paying for it. So what did you sign? When you said, I can't believe I have $58,000 in closing costs for my $350,000 condo, what did you sign? You signed this. And why did you sign this? I don't know. This is why I don't sell pre-construction condos. When can you sell your condo? When can you lease your condo? When the developer says you can. And if you don't obey, they might take it away from you. The purchaser covenants not to offer, list, or advertise for sale, lease, or transfer the unit, not to sell, lease, assign, transfer his interest under this agreement until after the acquisition of title on the unit. So you're in the occupancy phase and you want to sell. Do you know what happens? The developer may have unsold inventory. They are not going to let you compete against them. Now here's the fun part, folks. The purchaser acknowledges and agrees that once a breach of the preceding covenant occurs, such breach is or shall be incapable of rectification. Did you hear my voice go up? Because you know what's coming. And accordingly, the purchaser acknowledges and agrees that in the event of such breach, the vendor shall have the unilateral right and option of terminating this agreement and the occupancy agreement. Wow. So now, you gave them your money 5 years ago, the unit's done, you've got occupancy, you've given them fees, which by the way, you're not getting back, because that's one part we didn't cover, and they determine that you're in breach. And guess what? They take your unit and now the onus is on you to sue them. What does your unit look like? Have you seen the floor plan? Cool. Doesn't have any of those annoying pillars. It has floor-to-ceiling windows. It might not in the end. Why? Well, because of the section called construction changes and decor packages. You see, the purchaser acknowledges and agrees that the vendor may insert or add any items, including without limitation, windows, columns, firewalls, conduits, beams, or bulkheads within or adjacent to the unit, and or remove, change, delete, vary, alter, or modify the number, size, and location of any of the foregoing. And the best part, folks, as it ends, it says, regardless of the extent or impact hereof. You have no recourse whatsoever, and when you go and do your PDI and you go, that's odd, there are two massive pillars in the living room that weren't on the floor plan when I bought. Tough luck, guys. You thought you were gonna have a 12-foot long dining room table, but you can't because there's a giant HVAC right in between. You bought floor-to-ceiling windows, they don't have to give you any windows. This is what you signed. What about the sales agent that you met at the sales center? They were nice, right? They were pretty helpful, and you didn't bring your own real estate agent in either because you thought maybe you'd get a better deal, or you just thought, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go right to the source. Well, let me tell you guys, the purchaser acknowledges that no representations have been made to the purchaser by the sales personnel or agents upon which the purchaser has relied upon and which were material or instrumental to the purchaser's decision to purchase the unit, except as set forth herein in writing. So anything that that person said to you, no matter what it was, if it's not in this contract, you have no recourse. It's sort of like when they say police officers can lie to a suspect in an interrogation. Sorry, guys. That is what you signed. Why are condominiums canceled? Why are developers allowed to basically cancel a development and then start reselling the same units the day later for a heck of a lot more money? Why, folks? Because you signed this. Because you guys, I'm sorry to say, that are complaining that it's unfair, signed something that says the completion of the transaction contemplated by this agreement is conditional upon the vendor being satisfied on or before December 31st, 2019 in its sole and absolute discretion with the economic feasibility and viability of proceeding with the development and or construction of the condominium. Sole and absolute discretion with a date, and you signed this. Now, what if the building's already been half completed? Does that mean they can't cancel it? No. They can, right? Think about the King's Club. That thing was already basically halfway built. You see, folks, the purchaser acknowledges that the commencement of construction of the condominium, including the unit, shall not be construed as a waiver or satisfaction of these conditions. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you sign this agreement of purchase and sale, the developer has up to a certain date, which he can, of course, extend 3 periods up to 3 months, to decide whether to go ahead. And even if they do start construction, it doesn't matter. Folks, if you've bought and sold 15 pre-construction condos, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the ins and outs of these agreements. And if you ask your lawyer to draft an amendment to change something, and the developer says no, you might have enough sense to walk away. But I am of the opinion that the laymen out there, the masses, the people that, to be honest, have no experience and are walking into the sales center unrepresented, or they're too cheap to pay a lawyer to review these documents within the prescribed, provincially prescribed 10-day cooling off period, I think that those people are setting themselves up for failure. Somebody told me a while back after the museum flat was canceled that it was a low risk proposition because only less than 2% of condominiums are canceled. But we're not just talking about that. We're talking about the risk that there's a massive delay, which there always is. We're talking about the risk that there are material changes that you didn't plan for. We're talking about the risk that there's an extended occupancy period for 24 months where you're paying a fee for a unit you're supposed to own and you can't actually sell it because it's an illiquid asset. We're talking about the risk that the developer decides not to fix anything in the PDI and that you're going to have to go through Terry on. Guys, we're talking about so many risks, and having just gone through this with you, for the life of me, I can't understand why anybody, unrepresented, not hiring a lawyer, no experience, never done this before, would actually sign one of these things. And if you're watching this and you're still not moved, Godspeed and good luck.